Good evening. Now let's start our talk show, episode 98. The only things that stand between you and your dream is the will to try and believe that is actually possible. It's a beautiful quote quoted by Joel Brown. So, with this quote, I would like to bring our talk show named Conversation with Consultants with episode 98 of our guest talk series. Good evening, everyone. I am Rima Kumari, ECR coordinator of SKANG, and I am your host for today's talk show. Before I begin our talk show, let me briefly introduce SK Associates and Group. We are an ISO certified management consulting firm registered under the MSMED Act 2006 with the Government of India. Our mission is to providing consulting service to student entrepreneurs globally, covering areas such as compliance, operations, marketing, research and development, human capital, strategic and operations. Our passion lies in helping this budding entrepreneur bringing their dreams to life and contribute to global economics growth. Entrepreneurship is a catalyst for change and innovation. It's a powerful force that can reshape industries, transform lives, and make the world a better place. We are committed to supporting student entrepreneurs on their journey, equipping them with the tools, knowledge, and network they need to succeed. Now, before I begin our show, let's take a moment to introduce our guest for today. It gives us immense pleasure to welcome Ms. Suba Lakshminarasimhan, CEO, Executive Coach, and Creative Founder of Executive Alchemy 365. This special event. We are truly honored by your presence today, and we are delighted to have you here in this talk show to share insight with us. We would like to start this interview with our first question for you. How do you handle uncertainty when your business model is being tested?
Sure. Thank you, Rima, first of all, for inviting me to, be a part of your talk show. Because when you introduced me to SK Associates and Group, and now that I'm hearing a lot about them, it's indeed an honor and immense pleasure to be here and conversing with you. Yes, uncertainty and entrepreneurship. Nowadays, especially the scenario that we are in, right? So it goes like synonym. It's like, if entrepreneurship is right hand, then uncertainty is left hand, right? That they go hand in hand. So how do I manage that uncertainty when something happens with my business model, right? I can definitely give you an example. I have been on my own. My entrepreneurship journey started in 2010. Yeah. 2018-19 is the time when I wanted to really scale up to a different level because I was a young mom. I had a small baby before, at that point in time. When my baby, came into some level, I thought, okay, this is the right time for me to scale up. I was winning awards. I was presenting some research papers. Things were going really, really well. As a part of my scaling up journey, I created a new business model, and then I wanted to really take my services at a bigger level. In fact, we had the date fixed. We had one of the hotels in one of the richest hotels in Bengaluru, where I live in, booked. The conference hall was booked. It was a day-long event I had planned. In fact, registrations had started coming in. At that point in time, it was around 12K or something for a day's event. Registrations have started coming in. As we started investing, pandemic happened, right? We had to sit at home. Second thing, completely my business, I deal with executives, the leaders to enhance their career, expand their resilience. I work with such community where my clientele, they were facing layoffs, right? So totally from 360-degree to zero, it's like 100 to zero. Because of that uncertainty, nobody knew pandemic or COVID is something that, we didn't expect that to happen, right? So that's where I understood the power of, having that resilience. Yeah. How it is very, very important. Even though we talk about resilience, without that, I wouldn't have reached, even in 2018-19, I would have reached where I was. But that was not enough. So I started focusing on how can I expand that resilience, expand that power, the strength that I have. So far, that's what has been helping me in navigating through uncertainty, Rima.
It sounds good.
Thank you.
Moving with the next question. What's the biggest pattern you have noticed in yourself that helped or hindered growth?
Okay, a pattern which did both, hindered as well helped. Immediately, what comes to my mind is a single thing, single pattern, trust. So the strategy or my personality, right? I start with trusting everything and anything, surrendering to the moment. I trust everything 100%. Yeah. If it is people, if I'm working with somebody new, of course I assess their capability and everything, but I trust. With the trust, I start collaborating. Depending on what happens, right? Depending on how the collaboration goes, the percentage of the trust goes down. Then at one point in time, either I decide to continue working with them because we would have some conversation so that we both are on the same page. Then I continue to work with them. There are times where I have really, really burnt my fingers deeply, where I had to, move away from that collaboration, right? So both the things have happened. So to answer to your question, trusting everything 100% has been the pattern which has helped me, still helping me as well, hindering something that I aspire to do.
Nice. Your next question is, what's your approach to decision making when faced in conflicting options?
Hmm. That's a good question because I resonate with this question more because decision paralysis, and I call it decision paralysis because the minute we have to take some critical decision, we get into that paralytic mode, right? Sometimes that paralysis leads us to being stuck, so it's sort of a stroke, or we work hard, we get into some, we take some help like, physiotherapy or something like that, if you have to run that analogy, then work hard and then continue to do whatever we decide to do, right? Um, I am a deep believer of tapping into my intuition, Prema. Over the years, in the earlier days, I used to create a strategy. I started my entrepreneurship more as a strategist, right? So I used to look at the options, pros and cons of what is happening, what is the, so assessing those pros and cons. That's how I have, done my decisions or taken my decisions and then taken actions. But nowadays, as I was growing, right? So I trust my intuition more, right? When I say intuition, it could be my heart or my gut, depending on the situation. I keenly listen to my heart and gut. Whatever the guidance that I get, I take that decision.
Okay, great. Your next question is, how do you know when to trust your guts versus seeking internal advice?
That's a beautiful question. Yes, how can I know I can trust my gut, right? So as I mentioned earlier, right, I listen to my, the bodily sensations a lot, right? Say, for example, when do we connect anything with gut? When there is fear, right? So there is a risk that we are taking as a part of our entrepreneurship, huge money investment that we do, right? It could be for building a system or upskilling ourselves or on teams, right? We invest a lot of money. We take risks every day. When we do all that, when I listen to my body, fear will be there, right? It doesn't mean that when I'm listening to my body, it doesn't mean that there is no fear. Fear will be there, right? When I listen to my body, when I listen to my gut, it says that, you know what, fear is there, but you can navigate it through. Yeah. So am I looking at that fear for being in that safety net? That's one question that I ask. If I feel like, yes, my fear is keeping me in my safety net, we call it as comfort zone, right? Move out of comfort zone. You would have, listened to people saying. First thing what I check is, am I sitting in my comfort zone? Am I putting myself in that safety net where my fear is pushing me there? If I feel like, yes, it is pushing me there, then I push myself to go to the next level, which is the loop, right? Am I doing it right or wrong, right or wrong? What is the step that I should do? Going back, taking one step ahead, or moving one step, again going, we get into the dilly-dally mode, right? So the dilly-dally mode, I call it as that internal loop we are in. That means we are still within that inner threshold. Yeah. Now, the second question, what I will ask my gut is, now how can I move? How can I cross this threshold? Right? Depending on the answer, I cross. When I struggle a lot, if I stay in that safety net for a long time, or if I stay in that internal loop for a long time, I know that my gut is not yet ready with the answer. Immediately, I go and seek help with external guidance.
Yeah, great. Moving with the next question. What's the most difficult things you have had to unlearn as you have scaled?
Oh, that's it. Another brilliant question. See, whenever we struggle, Rima, right? You can also think through in your life. Whenever you struggle, you think about something of yourself, right? You may say, no, I need to now upskill. Oh my God, I'm scared of doing this. I think I'm not yet ready, or somebody is better than me, or what will others think if I fail, right? There are so many things, so many inner dialogues that we will be having, right? So something that I had to sort of unlearn is for a long time in my entrepreneurial journey, I was carrying my childhood. Yeah, I was known as a child who is so timid. Yeah, who is scared of external world. People around me used to say that, no, take care of Shubha, protect her, right? So even though I was taking steps, I was taking risks, I was carrying a part of that timid, who was scared of external world Subha in my head. When I realized that, no, that is 5 years Subha, 10 years Subha, 16 years Subha, stopping me from doing something, I realized, okay, that is the thing that I continue to unlearn. Even today, sometimes my 20-year-old Subha may be guiding me, yeah, which is not helping. Then immediately say, what, Subha, you are no more 20 years old. Now you are so and so. Go ahead and move. Yeah. So unlearning is my old self limiting my potential.
Nice. Moving with the next question. How do you stay focused on your vision when surrounded by noise?
Ah. Okay, if you check with my in my inner circle, right, with my friends and all, they will say Suba always goes back to the whiteboard. Yeah, uh, there is a possibility that I may be winning something, or I may be losing something, I may be failing somewhere, I may be succeeding somewhere, right? Whenever I reach a peak or deep, peak could be the things that I'm winning. Deep could be I have fallen really deep. Right? Life is all about that, especially entrepreneurship, bring in all sort of emotions, all sort of weather in a single day. Right? Whenever I'm reaching the peak or the deep, I go back to my whiteboard. Whiteboard is nothing but why. Go back to that answer why. Why am I doing what am I doing today? Yeah. Even sometimes I may be winning. I go back to that question, ask myself, because when I'm winning, I'm going to put in all my energy in that winning space, right? If I'm getting a very big project, all my energy is going to get into that project, right? If that is not going to really lead me towards my vision, then I have to take a step back and see, do I really need this at this moment? It may be bringing in money, but in the long run, if it is not helping, there is no use. Similarly, when I'm losing, in fact, in my failure, this going back to whiteboard has helped me a lot, right? Sometimes I may fail, I will be sad for a day or two. Oh my God, I'm missing an opportunity which can bring me some power, bring me big money, right? But failure is the truth, the fact, right? Before accepting, I feel sad, I go through all sorts of emotions, talk to my mentor or a coach or somebody to balance myself, accept that reality. But when I go back to the whiteboard, I would immediately, I will see that God is sending me a message, right? Maybe even though it looks like a failure at that moment, but it would have spoiled my growth in certain way, right? That is not the project, or those are not the right people that I should be working with, right? So going back to the whiteboard is what helping me keeping that focus on my vision.
Nice. Your next question is, what's your strategic for managing stress and burnout?
Okay, that's bringing a smile, in me, because in my home, right, while growing up, everybody, my mama, my chachi, mosi, parents, sisters, Everybody associate my behavior with stress, right? I used to get tensed quickly. But as I grew older, that stress is something that I learned how to manage, right? Doing some meditation, again, going back to the whiteboard and then calming myself, going for a walk. I started playing badminton. So physically, I engage myself. Yeah. I have certain daily habits that I do. Similarly, the mental health and emotional health, especially the emotional health part of it, if I feel like I'm not able to handle it on my own, immediately I reach out to seek help. Seek help. In fact, seeking help is an art that I learned as a part of my entrepreneurial journey. Before that, everything I wanted to handle on my own, right? So, in fact, I call some people as my internal board of directors. Yeah. I have a therapist, I have a mentor, I have a coach, I have a consultant. Based on what is happening, I knock their door, pay the, make the payment, to schedule an appointment to have a conversation with them. Yeah. So that has helped. Burnout, I have never, faced, because I always prioritize my life, Reema. Yeah. From my childhood, yeah, whatever is my priority at that point in time, I do not really need, deviate from there. Even if I deviate a bit, right, immediately my gut will tell me. Immediately I go back to my priority. For example, when I gave birth to my son, right, of course, still I continue to do my business. I was delivering my projects and everything was happening. But I was not really bothered about volume work at that point in time because my son was my priority. But the minute he grown up a little, he's still my priority. My family, my husband, everybody, my parents, in-laws, they are my priority. But the list in that priority will go up and down. Right now that I'm scaling up, my son is sort of on his own. I have put him, in third or fourth in my priority list. At the same time, whenever his exams are or he needs my help, again I push him out to as the top as a part of my priority. That helps me in not getting into that burnout space. But I help a lot of my CXOs on that burnout part.
It sounds good.
Thank you.
Moving with the next question, how do you handle criticism or negative feedback?
Okay. I have to have a journey to reach where I am today. See, today I look at it objectively, subjectively, and then see where the criticism is coming from. What is the intention behind the criticism and who is criticizing, right? Earlier days, whenever somebody is giving me, negative feedback or something, I used to rush and, work on that, upskill, do this, do that, all drama I used to have, right? But now I'm able to segregate the emotional connect with the criticism. I take in everything, but I do not consider that, okay, that is pointed to me as a human being, right? So that is pointed towards a specific role that I'm playing. It could be the coach, the role that I'm playing. If somebody is criticizing about the way that I'm coaching, then that criticism is towards that coach. There is a possibility that I have a space to work on, or they do not know how coaching works, right? Generally, people think that a coach means somebody will come and give advice. Coaching is not that. Coaching is all about enabling them to think on their own. If somebody is criticizing me on that, I will assess, right? Where exactly it is coming from. If it is like they don't have an understanding, I try my best to give them that understanding. If they are not ready to receive, I do not let it affect me. But if it is really serious, it is coming from somebody that I respect. I know that that is coming from the space of mutual respect, where there is a real intention of them, wanting me to grow. I take it so sincerely. I work on it, keep a track. I keep them updated. Ask them for that feedback again. How am I doing? How are you perceiving me now? I sincerely work on it.
Nice. Your next question is, how do you balance short term needs with long term goals?
Okay. See, this short-term needs and long-term goals are a part of any business, right? So one is like every beginning of the financial year. That means the end of the current financial year. I sit and create a strategy. Okay, what is my long-term strategy? And then, of course, long-term strategy stays, for some time. So, what is my short-term strategy right now to work on it? And and periodically I review my strategy. This is tracking and measuring my growth and everything is very, very important. So I periodically track and measure, so that in case if I'm deviating or focusing more on short term, forgetting the long term, then I pull myself back. Sometimes I may have to keep the long term aside, focus on short term. Yeah? Because especially now that I'm working with CXOs, all critical decision makers across industries, sometimes I may have to work on certain project which is short term, right? Because that is critical at that point in time. So tracking and measuring my progress, how it is happening periodically. I have a year-long tracking measuring mechanism, quarterly, monthly, weekly mechanism that I sincerely follow. I reflect a lot. Reflective writing is a part of my journey. I do reflective writing a lot, which helps me balance that appropriately.
Nice. Your next question is, what's your process for evaluating and learning from failures?
Definitely. So I look at life in two different ways, Reema. One is us growing in life, yeah, where we study and we, get a job, we earn money, then we get promotion or start something on your own, scale up, expand, build a team. That is a growth, yeah, financial growth, professional growth, and all, personal growth and everything, right? Health, everything. There is another perspective where evolving in life. Yeah. So evolving in life is where the spirituality comes in. Yeah. The personally, how am I evolving as a human being? Yeah. See, when I was 10 years old, if I call myself as somebody who used to get tensed easily, get stressed out easily, if I behave the same way in my 30s, 40s, and 50s, that means I'm not really evolving. I may be growing as a big entrepreneur, speaker, coach, this and that, multiple hats I may be wearing. I may be growing, but not evolving. Yeah. So I keep these two intact. So of course, failure is a part of our life. Whenever I feel like I'm failing professionally, then that's a part of growth. Okay, that's normal. Whenever I'm failing as a human being, I'm talking about resilience. I'm talking about stress. Busting stress for leaders. If I am not able to handle stress at home, right? If I shout at my son or at my husband or at my parents with my parents, right? That means I'm not really evolving as a human being. So these are all the metrics that I keep. Yeah. Everything I put it as a part of my reflective journal. See, sometimes out of anger, out of frustration, out of physical tiredness, I may shout that those things I ignore. Even 2 days ago, I traveled and I was in Hyderabad, came back early in the morning, 2 o'clock only I could come back home. Was literally very tired. So anger came out. That's okay. Those things I ignore. But when everything is going fine, physically I'm okay. But if I'm showing my emotions on somebody else, right? That means somewhere I need to work on myself. So that's what helps me in looking at failures and coming out of it.
Great. Moving with the next question, what's the role of institution in your decision making process?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, right, I listen to my gut. Yeah. Based on what my gut says, yeah, it will give me signals. Right. If I get into some digestive challenges, I know that my emotions are not aligned with the decisions that I'm taking. Right. Then I calm myself, put myself in meditative mode. As I meditate, I will get that decision, which is the right decision. Yeah. If I struggle a lot in that space, even in meditation, even in certain circumstances, if I'm not able to make the decision, I'm spoiling my sleep. The minute I hit my bed, if I don't sleep, that means something is not right. Yeah. Then I seek help from outside. I do not wait.
Okay, great. Moving with the next question, how do you ensure your business stay true to its core values?
Absolutely. Sleep. Sleep is my one of the, what can I say, my most favorite, my close to heart metric. Yeah. If I'm losing sleep, that means something is not right. Right. Say, for example, I'm agreeing to some project, but somehow I feel like this is not the right project for me. Right? I know that I will be procrastinating in submitting a proposal or working on some content around it. Right? The minute I'm procrastinating, which is leading to me having some sleepless nights, I know that something is wrong. Yeah. Then I go back to my intuition, listen to my intuition, or just use one of my mentor or a coach as a sounding board. have a discussion with them. When they ask me some questions, the reality, the truth will come out. Yeah, that first principle, right, that will come out. Then that means there is a possibility that I may be moving away from the value or the value system that I have. Then that is the signal, red flag. I come back, either say no to that project or I don't. I have a conversation or I have a clear cut conversation with my client and then I take up that.
Yeah, nice. Moving with the next question. What's the most important question you ask yourself regularly?
That's a deep question, Rima. Yeah. So, what is one question that I ask myself regularly? Yeah. See, one thing that I mentioned about unlearning. Yeah. So, whenever I sit with any confusion or any challenge where I find it really difficult to either manage my internal self, right? Zooming in is not helping me. Externally, I take support. Even though I may get some solutions, still I feel a little, jittery inside, right? We feel that, whenever I get into that space, I ask myself, okay, who is this Suba now struggling? Yeah. That who am I is the question that we ask, right? So who is this Suba who is struggling? The minute I sit with that answer, with this question, some answer will come. The answer could be you are that 10-year-old who struggled in her school. Yeah. That Suba is now dominating or something else. That is the question that I frequently sit with, nowadays. Prima.
Yeah, great.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Moving with the next question. How do you stay adaptable without losing sight of your vision?
Definitely. See, that is something I would say my inborn, or, inner strength, because that is an advantage of being born in, as a part of the older generation. Because without adaptability, survival was the toughest thing, right? The first thing what the parents and my grandmom and everybody taught us is adjust, right? Even though I used to complain about it, in fact, I used to fight with my grandma. She's no more now, but I used to, fight with my grandma saying that, you know what, you always asked us to adjust, 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 but we end up compromising a lot in life. Yeah, but again, as the old adage says, right? As you grow old, you understand what your parents tell you when you are young, right? So now I understand what exactly they mean by adjust. Adjusting is not compromising your quality of life or your values, but adapting, adapting to the situation without spoiling your values, right? So that's something which has been there since my childhood. Yeah. So that's easy for me. It's a part of my DNA.
Nice. Moving with the next question. How do you balance business growth with personal growth?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, right, the grow and evolve, right? So the minute I have anything that I'm growing, that is my business growth, professional growth. The evolving is where the personal growth is. I ensure both are properly aligned. If it is not aligned, it will show up. Yeah. I may get some headache or I may get some tummy ache or I may not be able to sleep. So end of the day, the body will show all the symptoms. Listening to that body will help you to find the right answer, why it is not aligned. Then I work on it.
Okay, great. Moving with the next question. What's the role of mentorship in your entrepreneur journey?
Oh, a lot. So I have had mentors since my childhood. As I mentioned, my grandmom, we used to call her Papi Ma. So she was like playing a role of a mentor all through my life till I was certain, years. And my family, I come from very, very, what can I say, closely knit family. Even the extended family is very, very supportive of me. Always they kept me in the, in the pedestal. At the same time, teaching me the values which are very, very important to carry till I, breathe on this world, right? So mentors have been a part of my life in different shapes and shades. Likewise, during school times, I had teachers as my mentors. As a part of my corporate journey, my bosses were so kind. They have played different roles as mentors. And there are people who have created some difficulty in my life. Yeah. I treasure them more, even though they were like creating a lot of trouble. But they taught me what are certain things that I'm not supposed to do, right? The way that they treated me, I know that this is the way that I should never treat anybody. They mentored me in a different way, right? So, but now as a part of this journey, I have dedicated mentors for my business, for dealing with clients, for my business development, for my personal space. There are so many aunties in my apartment complex. They are all my gurus, where they teach me shlokas. There is one auntie with whom I have been reading a lot, learning a lot about Ramana Maharishi. So I'm always blessed with people, Rima. Since the time that I was born in this world till this minute, I know that people are going to be my blessing all through my life.
It sounds good.
Thank you.
Moving with the next question. How do you measure success beyond financial metrics?
Yes, there are certain metrics like in my personal life. Since the day that I wake up, how do I feel? Yeah? At each segment of the day that goes, the feeling I check. How do I feel? Yeah, that feeling gives me the right metric. Okay, yes, Suba, you are doing fine. No, Suba, you have certain challenge, but better address it. So the feeling becomes a critical measure for me. Then, like emotions become critical measures for me beyond financial and other metrics. And there are certain things that I look at it from from my professional side, right? Even though there is a finance metric there, right? For example, the proposals that I am submitting, right? What sort of work that I'm submitting, what sort of projects that I'm submitting my proposals for. I may get that project or not, it doesn't matter, right? So from last year and now, is my proposal is expanded enough that is aligned with who am I becoming, right? So these are all certain metrics that I keep, mainly my health, my gut health and my sleep. If there is a disturbance in these two metrics, I know that I have certain things to focus on.
Yeah, nice. Your next question is, how do you handle the pressure of leadership expectations?
See, one thing I don't see anything as pressure, because before I get into any project working with leaders, right, I ensure the clarity is there among all the stakeholders. Yeah. I may be running some pre-work to understand who they are, where they are coming from. It could be with name or anonymous survey I may be running with them, right? So that sort of when I'm starting the project, sort of we are starting with the same page. Yeah. So the pressure will be very, very less for me, right? But when it comes to supporting them handling their pressure, right? Um, say if I'm having a 1 year program, right? 6 months we focus on building that self-awareness, deepening that self-awareness. Yeah? I enable that they understand who they are as human beings beyond various roles that they are playing, right? So that journey expand their resilience, their inner steadiness is something that which will be strengthened, right? Then they know how to handle that pressure. Even there is a huge pressure, deep pressure, they will not be intimidated inside. They will look at everything strategically. Even if they go through some emotions, right, they will know how to navigate through those emotions so that they can take the right decision. That is my core, the capability that I have, core capability that I bring out on the table.
Yeah, nice. Your next question is, what has been your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
Biggest failure. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't consider anything as biggest failure. So I'm struggling to pick what I can, say. Biggest failure. Yeah, maybe I can say this, right? I recognized my capability a little at a later point of time. Yeah. Probably if I had recognized that, acknowledged my capability a little earlier, right? Probably I would have got an opportunity to create an impact in more and more lives. Probably, I had underplayed. I had played underdog for a long time. I didn't play big for a long time. That would be one of my biggest failure or mistake or challenge, we can say.
Okay, your next question is, how would you define yourself as a leader?
Okay, so definitely somebody with skin very, very, very thick, yeah, who can convert things, challenges into, yeah, this is something that my son said recently. He's 14 years old, going to be, he's in ninth grade. I don't know what he observed. He said that, Amma, I have seen you converting all the challenges into tasks. Then it becomes easier for you to, tackle it. Maybe, I don't know why he said that. Yeah, now that his vacation started, probably we'll have some conversation around that. I have taken that to my heart. Yeah, so I'm a leader who can easily convert challenges into opportunities, yeah, conflicts into opportunities, and then create something not only for myself, for the community that I belong to. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, it's great. Moving with the next question. You need to break the rules if you want to success. Do you agree with this statement?
Absolutely, absolutely, right. But again, what we need to do is, what do we define it as a rule, right? So I cannot break the rule just for the sake of calling myself a feminist or modern contemporary and all, right? First of all, if I'm breaking some rule, do I really know why that rule was there in the first place? Do I really know that? If I break that rule, what would be the consequence that I'm going to create, not just for me, for the ecosystem that are around me, right? And do I have that energy to face that consequence? Right? So I would be asking these questions before I break any rule. But yes, I do believe in breaking the rules to, grow and evolve.
Great. Moving with the next question. How do you motivated yourself in your harder times?
See, one thing what I recognized is I was not really processing my emotions. Yeah, whenever I was facing any down time or hardship period, right? I had sort of put my emotions under the rug because I had to take care of others in the ecosystem, right, in my family and all that stuff. But off late, what I've started doing is acknowledging my emotions. If I'm feeling sad, say that I'm sad. Just process it. Take my own sweet time. It may take a day, week, or whatever. Yeah. I just let me be there with that sadness or whatever the emotions that I go through. But if I sense that okay, it is putting me in some safety zone, or that becomes a reason for me not doing something that I'm supposed to do, then I immediately push myself cross that threshold. Yeah. So I am more of believer of intrinsic motivation. I'm a self-made person. Yeah. Of course, I faced lots of backlashes and challenges, but I've ignored them because I'm very clear about where I want to go, who I want to become, who am I today, who am I being today, right, and tomorrow. So I have ignored that, but intrinsic motivation is the only thing which is pushing me forward.
Yeah, great. Moving with the next question. What do you believe are the three qualities that make or can make someone be a star in any field that he or she chooses?
Okay. See, of course, hard work is important, focused effort is important, everything is important, but it's very, very important that one thing is like they should have that emotional maturity to handle. Yeah. Because you are going to see the backlashes, it's a part of life. Whatever you are trying to do, if you have to become a star, that emotional maturity is very, very important. Yeah. So that you can do everything with ease, enjoy the process. Yeah. That's one. And second is clear on why, yeah, the purpose. You should be clear about why you are doing what you are doing. Once you go back there, you will know whether you are doing something for the sake of doing or because some of your friends are doing, your colleagues are doing, you are doing that. And having that clear vision and properly done strategy, seeking help, having some mentor, having a coach, that is very, very important as a third element. These three are very, very important.
It sounds good.
Thank you.
This is your last question for today's session. What's the biggest lesson you have learned about yourself as an entrepreneur?
Um, yeah. See, again and again, I would like to highlight the same thing. Never ever underplay yourself. Never play that underdog. Yeah. Because the more and more I play underdog, I play small, the impact that I want to create will also remain small. Yeah. Play big. Push yourself without worrying about the depth. Yeah. That is the biggest lesson that I've learned.
Great.
Thank
Moving
you.
ahead, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Miss Suba Lakshminarasimhan being our guest for today at Conversation with Consultants. Your presence and engagement helped to make this event successful. Thank you for providing insights your exciting journey. Further, we would also like to thank our audience for listening patiently throughout the event. Thank you everyone joining with us today and hope that everyone gains some knowledge from this event. Looking ahead, we are excited to announce that our next episode, 99 of Conversation with Consultants, will be held soon. We hope to see you all there. Thank you, and we look forward to reconnecting with you again. Do
Sure. Thank you
subscribe.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rima, to
Thank
you and
you.
SK Associates and Group and all the audience who are, as you said, patiently listening. Hope they all get that. They can connect with me. I would be more than happy to support them in their journey. And much gratitude. I would be more than happy to get associated with you and your organization. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
ma'am.
much. Thanks a
Do
lot.
sub- Thank you, ma'am. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us all social media handles to stay connected with us. Goodbye and have a great day ahead. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rima.